So I've cleaned this surface of this water pump really well. It's tough to get at, it just takes a while to do it, but it has to be clean. Can't be kind of clean, kind of semi-clean, unless you want it to leak. It has to be clean. So I've got I put some RTV silicone on the side facing the pump. I don't like to put it on the side against the engine block because then if you have to take it off of there later, the gasket sticks everywhere, so I try not to do that. We're just going to line this back up, put it back in place. I've got a little bit of thread sealer on these bolts, that the ones that are on the inside here. I don't know if they go into the water jacket or not, but in case they do, I don't have to worry about it. See if we can get this in the right place. Now we'll torque them. Right, now we want to put the alternator bracket back on. These two bolts on the top of this bracket are the top two bolts on the water pump to hold the water pump on. So we're going to set this in place. Start this 14, mounts into the block. Just get it started there and leave it loose. $17, $19 foot-pounds, something in there. Now I can put the new idler pulley back on, mount that. It's blocking this bottom bolt, so you have to put the water pump on before you do that. Get my alternator back up in place here. Might as well get that set up and get that in place. The new idler pulley here, 31 to 40 foot-pounds, so we're on a 35. We're in the middle. It goes right down here. This bottom, right under the water pump. Tensioner. Set that up here. We will need that. Got the grenade pin in it. Belt. Whole purpose of doing this. So I'm going to feed this down in there. We're going to put it on the crankshaft pulley first and around that idler. This is the side towards the firewall that gets tensioned with a tensioner. So this side doesn't want to have slack in it. You don't want any slack in this side. You'll take that slack up on this side. So I'm going to reach down in here. I'll show you this when it's on, and put it around the camshaft, the crankshaft gear, sorry. Crankshaft, not camshaft. My mistake. 1 minute. Up against the idler pulley that we just installed. Get that in there. Make sure my belt's all the way on here. Good. And I want this to be tight. So no slack really on this side. I can't really get any more out of it. Don't want to turn the cam gear or anything, but I want this side tight. Just check it again. So I'm against the idler, kind of pulling up on it and getting it as tight as I can get it now without being nuts, and then making sure all the loose, the tension is on this side. So that's where I want this to stay. It'll stay put. You can kind of see, looking down at the crankshaft gear there. I'll just look in through the wheel well. There it is, tight against the, as tight as you can get it against that pulley, idler pulley there. All the way tight, and all your slack is on this side. That's where your tensioner is going to go. So here's the old tensioner. You see there's an arrow. When you use that 6mm, you only turn it counterclockwise. don't go clockwise, always counterclockwise. But I had to do it a couple times, and once you pull this pin, it looks like this, so you have to actually push this back down. You basically take it, push it back down, and put the pin back in, like that. So it's not sticking out further than that. Take it without the bolt in it, slide it behind the belt, get it in position, and put the bolt in. Tighten this down so it's pretty tight, but you can still move it. Put your Allen key or socket in there and pull the pin. And then you've got to adjust this till that pointer gets up in that window, and it's right behind the bottom of the, almost behind the bottom of the camshaft pulley. So you really can't see it. I can only see it through a mirror. But when you line it up, get your pointer in there. I don't want to hit my hand here. It will move on you, and if you have it too loose, it'll go past it. And you line it up and get it in there like that. Then tighten this to torque it down. Check everything, and then you want to crank the 2 revolutions of the crankshaft pulley, and then you want to check it again to make sure it's still in that window and hasn't moved. If it's moved, if it's out of that window, you've got to take it apart again, put your pin back in, and do it again. I had to do it a couple times, but I had some slack in this belt, enough on this side, on the non-tension side, that it was 1 tooth off. So when I came back around to top dead center, I could see this hole was actually a little bit this way, 1 tooth. So I had to take the tensioner off, adjust that, get it straight up, and reset the belt again. Make sure my marks are right. Went around, retensioned it, checked it, and it was fine then. But you got to check that 2 times around on the crankshaft. Check your marks again, make sure they are where they're supposed to be, they're not off, and make sure your pointer is in that window. That's it. Took me a little bit. I've never done this particular car, so I didn't know what to expect, so it takes a little longer when you haven't done it. Once you've done it once, you know what to expect. You can usually do it in about half the time. I'll start putting the covers back on now. Obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts. I think it's a lot easier to come up through the bottom of this. I'm just going to start these bolts and hold it in place here. Gonna be another one of those days, dropping it. Of course, you're not gonna be able to see most of this, but there's really not much to see either. All right, 4 bolts, top cover. Actually, before I do that, I have this bracket that I have to put back. I'm gonna put that back before we go to the top cover. And now I put the top cover back on here. Okay. Don't forget this. see. I've got to pick this motor up. Okay, done up top. Everything's back together. I gotta go and hook the, actually it's not all done. I almost forgot the 12 millimeter pivot for it. I can't do that yet actually. I still have to put the belt on. So, I think I'm gonna put the water pump pulley on and then the belt. Crankshaft pulley. This is my water pump alternator belt. I've got that in place so it'll be a little easier for me to do that now than to try to put it on later, I think. Put the cover back in. Line this up. Belt out of the way. Probably make a mess of things. Should be able to wiggle this back on. Alright. So on there. My bolt back in. This is 120 foot-pounds. And they make special tools and holders to put this back on, and yeah, I don't have any of them. I'll show you what I usually do. If I can do it on this one, I will. Otherwise, I'll figure something out. So I am not going to run this all the way down with the gun. That's not a good idea. I'm just going to run it. Actually, didn't even do it. And then I'm going to do it by hand, 120 foot-pounds. What I try to do usually is get a pipe wrench around this, around the, yeah, I'm knocking everything off. Knocking it all over the place. Just wide enough to get around it, to hold on to it. It's a little tight on this one, but I think it'll work. So I can hold that and hold the pulley still, if I can get it on there enough. I think so. Let me get it a little tighter than that. Not crushing it. I got the cloth in there. I don't want to damage it. So I'm just going to hold that. Man, give me some better light here. This light's terrible. Get some light on this. So I have it right around this just to hold it, and I'm going to hold that. Usually I can get it against the suspension, but I'm going to have to hold this with my other hand. And I'm going to put a torque wrench on that and torque it down to 120 foot-pounds. It's done. Pipe wrench for the wind. You just got to be careful. Put a cloth around it. I had it sticking this way straight to the front, and it's holding around here. So what happens is you start to turn this, and it kind of cocks that pipe wrench against the suspension, and it binds. It holds it, but it doesn't damage it. Then you're able to tighten that up, 120 foot-pounds, And it's done. That's it. So I'm going to put the belts back on here. I'm not going to really show you that because there's not a whole lot to see. It's really tight. Tighten that alternator bracket up. And then we're going to fill it up with antifreeze and start it up. Start it right up. Showing you it actually is correct. I'm bleeding the cooling system out, letting it warm, come up to temperature, let it run. Make sure we don't have any issues. Everything sounds good. Everything looks good. Good for another 60,000 miles or so. Well, that's it. Not a very difficult job. Just take your time. 3 things you have to remember. 1, get the timing set to top dead center before you take the belt off and put the new one back on. 2, this tensioner, you have to get that pointer in the notch when you're adjusting it. The 3rd thing, and I haven't seen anybody mention this, doesn't mean they didn't, I just haven't seen it. There's tabs on this that stick out. This is the old tensioner. In the front of the block is a freeze plug. It's an indent. These tabs go right back into that indent like that. They go right in there. This bottom one has to sit on that bottom edge of that freeze plug. And when you're adjusting this and getting the pointer, it will have a tendency, it wants to move up off of that bottom. So I reach in there with a screwdriver as I'm adjusting it and just push it back down and make sure it's on the bottom edge of that freeze plug in the front of the block. It has to be. That's it. It's not a very difficult job. You take your time. Air tools help on this one. Crankshaft pulley, things like that. They just help. They're going to make it faster for you. But I'm just going to show you the parts that I used. ASIN, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I think it is. TKK003. That's the timing belt kit. I either like OEM or these for this particular car. OEM is probably going to cost you over twice what this one costs. This is the alternator water pump belt. It's a Gates K040350. And this is the main drive or the AC compressor belt, K040336. If you have to do this job, I hope it helps you out. If you like the video, subscribe below. Thanks for watching.